Welcome. Boy, this is a wide room. Don't know where the center is. Maybe here? So let me tell you what the creation story is behind tonight. The creation story is that we have a group inside of Wavetronix called Waverunners. And the purpose of Waverunners is to invite employees hired within the last 24 months to dare greatly. And they try to identify areas that they can focus on to increase impact in 3 areas: networking, idea sharing, energy, and attitude. So tonight is a direct result of employees that have been at Wavetronix for not very long. And that's where tonight came from. And they decided to focus on improving leadership within our employee base and within our community and our neighbors and our friends. So you ask yourself, leadership. You know, sometimes I've heard it said that people are either leaders or followers. Do you believe that? I've heard it many times. In fact, I bet it hasn't been more than 30 days that I've heard somebody tell me that. People are either a leader or they're a follower. I personally don't believe that. How many of you in the audience are parents? Do you think you're leaders? Of course you do. Hopefully you're not following with, that would be disaster, right? How many of you are friends? Do your friends as friends, do we need leaders? Do we need our friends to provide leadership to us at times? Of course we do. How about our coworkers? How about our neighbors? How about our parents? Our children? So we're all leaders in various aspects of our lives. And so, but leading is kind of hard to define. Here's some words that might describe it. It's guiding, directing, supporting, and inspiring myself and others. It's doing, finishing, deciding, and committing. Those are just a few of the words that describe leadership. I certainly have not mastered leadership. Mastering leadership is a lifelong, and perhaps it'll take longer, maybe it'll take several lives for me to master leadership. It requires learning. Leadership isn't always natural. It's like a lot of you raised your hands at being a parent. Maybe being a parent felt natural to you and you knew everything from day one. But most of us that have gone through the leadership or through the parent journey knows that we had a lot to learn about being a parent. Leadership is the same way. Leadership takes time to learn. And it requires us to watch others, try things and observe if it works. It requires us to change ourselves. It requires us to practice, and it becomes a lifetime aspiration. So we can also ask ourselves, is leadership a function of how old we are? Is leadership reserved for people in their 50s like me? Or is leadership, have you ever watched a 4-year-old lead? Or maybe a 2-year-old. Have any of you ever participated in a nursery? Have you ever watched 2-year-olds lead each other? Leadership is not about a certain age. And leading always begins with leading ourselves. Usually we think of leading, it's leading someone else, right? But leadership starts with leading ourselves. And it's the foundation of all leadership. If we can't lead ourselves, it's very difficult for us to lead others. And there's kind of 3 things that I would like to look at quickly about what self-leadership, what's the basics of self-leadership. The first one is convictions. I've learned in life that values aren't arbitrary. There's some principles that just work. And there's other values that we might try that don't work. Right? Our convictions is based on those values or those principles that we found that work. And those convictions are really the foundation of our self-leadership, of how we lead ourselves. We lead ourselves consistent with what we believe works. Second thing is we have to have confidence in ourselves. We actually have to like ourselves. How do you treat yourself when you make a mistake? How do you treat yourself when you recognize a weakness in yourself? How do you treat yourself when you realize you have an inability? Do you beat up on yourself? Does your self-esteem take a drop? Or do you just accept the way you are and look at all of the good things that you've become? Right? And confidence is aspiring to be more than what we currently are. So it's accepting ourselves for what we are, with all of our weaknesses and our mistakes, and aspiring to be better. That's a person that's confident in themselves. That's a person that can lead themselves, and that's a person that can lead others. The third thing, after convictions and confidence, is courage. You know, courage is about being vulnerable, about taking chances, about letting people see who you really are, admitting mistakes. It's about maybe never is a strong word, but it's about not giving up. Think of things that you've done in your life that are worthwhile doing. I'll bet they were hard and you didn't give up. Those are the things that matter. Things that matter take a lot of work, and we can't give up. We keep at them. We finish things. We do our best. We keep going. That's what courage is. Now, I've never been on the battlefield, so maybe courage is different on a battlefield. But in life, I found that courage is simply getting it done, finishing things. And so I think that leading self forms the foundation for all of leadership. It's having convictions, it's having confidence in ourselves, and it's having courage. And a few weeks ago, I got a chance to talk to Colby Jenkins on the phone. And it quickly became clear to me that he understands self-leadership. He understands leading is about people. He went through his whole talk outline for tonight. It's clear to me he understands that leading is about people. He understands leading is about not giving up and finishing things. It's about doing hard things. He understands leading is about standing on firm ground. These are all things that I've learned in my life. And as I listen to him, he gets leadership. He really gets it. So we're really lucky tonight to be able to listen to somebody that really understands leadership. And so Colby Jenkins, let me switch my thing here so I don't forget anything. So he's in the U.S. Army Special Forces. He was also a military advisor to Congress. And he's going to speak about strengthening your leadership potential to accomplish difficult tasks in unconventional environments. Now, what can be more unconventional than a kitchen when your kids are tearing it up? What can be more unconventional than your kids sticking their head in the toilet? Right? There's all kinds of unconventional things that happen in our life. He's going to take some unconventional environments that he's been in that we likely have not experienced, and he's going to talk about leadership in those environments. However, they relate directly to what you do in your everyday life. They relate directly to what you do in the workplace. They relate directly to what you do in terms of your service opportunities in your community. And so I want to give you a way to think about how to listen to Colby tonight. So I'm an engineer, and a lot of my life I've written code. I've programmed. Do we have any programmers in the audience? A couple? Okay. So one of the first things I learned about 40 years ago was an if-then statement. Okay? You're writing a program and you put if this happens, then this happens. So I want you to run an if-then statement tonight as you're listening to Colby. So if you listen and understand, if you listen to understand, he's going to get you thinking. So if you don't challenge it, one of the things that we do when we listen to somebody talk about something like leadership is we're constantly questioning, do they know what they're talking about? Is that right? Right? So I want to encourage you to listen to understand what he's saying. and it's going to get you thinking. The then part of the statement is, once you get thinking, you change yourself. And that's what the Leadership Symposium is about. You listen to things, they get you thinking, and then you change yourself. And that's what Colby desires. He hopes to make an impact on your lives tonight and cause some change. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Colby.
Where did David go? Where did David go? David, thank you for... Right there, sorry. Thank you for hosting me. I appreciate it. Thank you for that generous introduction. Thank you, everyone, for choosing to be here tonight. It's my pleasure to be here and traveled from California and for the opportunity to come and share this evening with you. I appreciate you for making the choice to be here. You've got lots of other places you could have been, but you made the choice to be here tonight with me, so I appreciate that. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and building your A-team. This is my A-team in Afghanistan. Just for reference, I'm this guy here. I don't know if you could see it over there. But this is my A-team in Afghanistan, my Green Berets, along with some folks who supported us. So tonight I'll share my perspective on leadership and building your A-team, some combat-tested ideas that I was fortunate enough to experience. I'll be talking a lot about myself tonight. But I want you to realize, hopefully, that while I am talking about myself, I'm doing so as a small representation of the thousands and millions of others who have served like me and who may have given the ultimate sacrifice. I'm just a small, humble snapshot of all of their experiences. So as you hear my stories and you listen to my voice, I hope that you'll always remember there are a lot of folks standing behind me that we should always honor and remember. Many of my own friends who have given the ultimate sacrifice so that we could all be here. So you're listening to me, but think of them. Tonight I'll take you back in time to Afghanistan. We'll set the scene for where I learned some of these stories, some of these experiences. Then we'll talk about leadership, some different ideas, some principles that could help you maximize your own leadership potential. And then we'll talk about team building, whether it's a team, a no-kidding team, whether it's your family, whether it's your group of friends. Whatever group or environment you may be in, there are some team building ideas that we'll talk about tonight. But first, let's go back to Afghanistan. So there I was, back in Afghanistan. We had the opportunity to host Tom Brokaw and an Embassy Nightly News crew for a few days in Afghanistan. They were doing a War on Terror special. And they spent some time with us, following us around, filming some of our engagements, and just getting to know and feel and taste and smell what the War on Terror was all about. So without further ado, I'll let Tom Brokaw take us back and set the stage for what we're going to talk about tonight. This was a shot when he was temporarily filling in at Meet the Press in Washington, D.C., and hosted me on set, and I had an opportunity to watch him work his magic there.
NBC News in depth tonight. More on the war on terrorism. For the last 2 days in Afghanistan, American and Afghan forces have been fighting intensely with militants tied to the outlawed Taliban. It's been going on in 2 southern provinces. It's described as the deadliest fighting there in almost a year. More than 60 rebels and at least 9 Afghan soldiers have been killed, 7 Americans wounded. Tom Brokaw has just returned from a remote and hostile part of southern Afghanistan with an American Special Forces team.
This is the U.S. Army's version of a wagon train trying to tame the frontier of southeastern Afghanistan. It is a joint patrol of American Special Forces and the new Afghan National Army, which has grown to 32,000 troops, almost twice as large as the American military presence in this country. They're hoping to bring peace and win friends in the village of Bagh, a tiny, impoverished collection of mud homes and simple shops. For security reasons, we can't show the faces of Commander Captain Colby Jenkins and members of his Special Forces team who have been working in this area for 7 months. Today, Captain Jenkins lets his Afghan counterpart, Captain Rahmatullah, take the lead.
This is a jirga, a kind of town meeting, as the Special Forces continue their dialogue with these men, winning their hearts and minds, because just north of here, about 2 hours, is a major Taliban region, and they want to keep this part of the pass secure.
With the children looking on and the women of the village out of sight, The elders, all men, are friendly but wary. Almost all of them voted in the historic presidential election last fall, but like voters everywhere, they're impatient for more help. Back in Afghanistan, in the wild, Captain Jenkins and his Special Forces team return to their base, winding through the broad, scenic river valley where nothing seems amiss.
When you look out on this valley, to me, it just seems peaceful and pastoral. What does it look like to you?
Pretty much the same, but with a lot of hidden mysteries, a lot of history, a lot of people struggling to progress.
And by the way, just 2 days after Tom's visit, Captain Jenkins and his men were helicoptered to another Special Forces base where they were involved in a major firefight attacking a regional headquarters.
So that was my battlefield. That was my learning laboratory. But as you think of your battlefield or your team, it's also important to remember that you do not have to have a helmet or body armor or carry a rifle or a pistol holstered at your side in order to be a member of an A-team. That just happened to be my A-team. You don't need body armor. You don't need a rifle. You can be a member of your own Special Forces A-team. So tonight I hope to share with you some ideas that can help you expand on your own leadership potential. Maybe you'll hear a nugget of wisdom or something that may prick your heart or spark your interest that will help you expand on what you can already do, just to amplify it a little bit more. And we'll talk about some team building. When you're in a team environment, whether it's with your family or on a team, maybe some ideas we'll share tonight will help you in that regard. And these will be some of the points that we'll talk about. It's interesting here, this is let me back up. This mullah that's squatting here that I'm talking to was a mullah that taught me the meaning of the difference between, or how things are in Afghanistan. It's not black or white. There's shades of gray in Afghanistan. And you may encounter that in your life, in your engagements with different leaders, different people on your battlefields. I bring that up because sometimes it's not always black or white. There are shades of gray. And with this particular mullah, I had to learn what his shades of gray were that helped him be comfortable. Because in the nighttime, he needed to find a way to make peace with the Taliban sometimes, who came and knocked on his door, who came and threatened him. During the daytime, he needed to find a way to make peace with me. So I had to learn that on the battlefield, it's not always black and white. But I could distinguish those shades of gray and what helped him be comfortable due to the relationship that I sought to build with him, the time that I spent with him. So that's an important ingredient, both in being a leader and also in building a team. Taking that time to understand who the people are that you're dealing with and maybe what shades of gray they're combating each day, because their world is not often as black and white as your world. If there's one thing I hope you'll take away from tonight, after all the words and pictures, stories I'll tell you, I hope it's this picture and this image. This image combined with one phrase, be the lighthouse. What does a lighthouse do? There's kind of two things that a lighthouse does. One, it warns of danger. It marks danger. It marks danger to those who may be out to sea, who may be looking to avoid that danger. The lighthouse indicates where that danger is. Two, the lighthouse points and gives direction away from danger. So if a ship's coming, it can see there's danger, and I know that I need to go another direction to avoid that danger. As a leader, you can be that lighthouse. Stand firm, stand tall. As the waves come and bounce and crash upon you, maybe you're a project leader, maybe you're a mother, a father, and you're experiencing the turmoil, the storms of life. You've got to be that lighthouse. You've got to mark where danger is, where the jagged rocks are for those who are trying to find safe harbor by looking towards you. Be the lighthouse. Stand tall, stand firm in that storm. So as a leader, it's important to have a solid foundation. There are different ingredients that can constitute a solid foundation. These are just a few. First, it's important to be authentic. Be the best you. Be you. Don't try and fake the funk. Trust in your own talents. Trust in the God-given skills, the knowledge that you're seeking right now, the education that you have, the experiences that you have. Trust in yourself. Be the best you. Here's a picture of me with some of my old high school baseball friends who I know that if I walked in the room and I tried to be Joe Cool or I tried to be somebody who I'm not, they could quickly see through those smoke and mirrors, and they could help me be grounded. So as a leader, it's important to surround yourself with good friends, people who can help you and remind you to be the best you. Trust in yourself. Next, believe in yourself. This is a shot of me in a helicopter over the jungles of Colombia. The time to believe in ourselves was not once we were already airborne in the helicopter. The time to believe in ourselves was long before we ever got near a helicopter. We had to start believing in ourselves once we started training, once we started learning, long before the day of execution. So as a leader, it's important to believe in yourself and translate that belief to your team. Wouldn't have done us any good if we'd have gotten in those helicopters and started towards our target and looked at each other and said, okay, I believe in us. We good? We needed to have that confidence, that belief long before. And we gained that confidence through our training, through our rehearsal, so that when the helicopters came, it was just another step. Of course, the adrenaline was different and very present, but the belief was already there. Believe in yourself now. Don't wait until the moment of execution. Next, ask for help. As a leader, you don't need to know everything. It's perfectly fine to ask for help. This is a shot with me and my last Pentagon boss, Admiral Winnefeld, the number 2 guy for the entire U.S. military, and perhaps the smartest guy I've ever worked for, probably the smartest guy I've ever been around, just wicked smart. This was at a congressional hearing regarding the Department of Defense budget. Very complex topic. No way he could know everything. He fielded a question from a congressman, didn't know the answer, had no problem turning around and asking for help. Didn't mean that I knew all the answers, but the point here is that he got asked a question, didn't know the answer, even though he's number 2 for the entire army or military. No problem saying, you know what, I don't know, I'll find out and I'll get back to you. So as a leader, don't sweat those types of things. If you don't know, ask for help, but then be accountable and return and report. That's an important ingredient that will contribute to your solid foundation. Next, as a leader, never quit. But if you're going to quit, if you're contemplating quitting, just quit tomorrow. Never quit today. I learned this from my grandfather, Lynn Labrum, who taught me that if you're going to quit, just quit tomorrow. And tomorrow will come, the day will continue, and you'll feel like quitting again, and just quit the next day. And we have this talk as I prepared for the U.S. Army Ranger School, which this first picture represents. Ranger School is designed to beat you down, to wear you down, to put you in difficult situations, and then to teach you how to lead. Teach you how to lead yourself and how to lead your peers. An important help for me during Ranger School that I'll share a quick story on here. As I felt sorry for myself, as I wanted to quit every day, nearly every day, the trick to overcoming that was to find someone else who was hurting just a little bit more than me and help them. I guarantee you, as you're starting to encounter an obstacle, or the moment when you start to feel sorry for yourself, if you could just take a minute and look around on your team, in your cubicle, on your floor, in your family, there's definitely somebody else who's hurting just a little bit more. There's always someone else who's having just a little bit harder time than you are. The challenge is to find that person. Find that person and serve them. As you serve them, you'll quickly forget about your own struggles, and you'll gain a forever friend along the way. And how I learned this, most definitely, was in Ranger School. So Ranger School is divided into 3 phases, the last phase being the swamp phase in Florida. In Florida, I had the opportunity, well, actually in the mountain phase before, I had the opportunity to connect up with one of my dearest friends who's here tonight, Forrest Cook, who now runs the ROTC program at BYU. I met Forrest on day 1 going into West Point. We were both plebes. When all the plebes came together the night before our day, reception day at West Point, we were all stuffed in a hotel, all in the lobby like cattle going to the slaughter, didn't know which way to go. And I saw Chip, because he had a CTR ring on, Choose the Right. And we became friends from that day forward, almost 20 years ago. Well, more than 20 years ago. And here we are tonight. So we had the opportunity later in Ranger School to connect in the mountain phase. In the Florida phase, I was struggling. What was neat about Florida is you had your limited meals provided to you, but you also got 2 hua bars, they're called. The Army phrase, hua. It's like an Army granola bar. Tastes like crap, but in Ranger School, it tastes awesome. So you're allotted 2 hua bars during the Florida phase just because it was a little bit more difficult. Well, as things would go, I was not good at rationing my hua bars. I ate them. And sometimes I ate ahead of where I should have. And one particular day, I was sucking, I was hurting. And I needed a hua bar. My good buddy Chip Forrest came over and saw that I was struggling and gave me a hua bar, his hua bar. And that act of kindness, that act of courage, of service, is obvious. I've never forgotten that, more than 20 years ago. He's here tonight. I've never forgotten that. So find that person who's hurting in your life and give them their version of a hua bar, and they'll never forget it. The other example of help that I've had is earlier this year, well, my daughters, this is a picture of myself with my 2 daughters, they're avid swimmers. I'm not. I'm an avid bench warmer, cheering for them. But I figured, I'm at the pool enough, I should learn how to swim as well. So I started that about a year ago, started swimming a little bit more. We live near San Francisco. Alcatraz is nearby. Why not swim from Alcatraz across the bay, right? Everybody does that. So we entered the Alcatraz Shark Fest this past summer in July. This is a shot of my daughters and I before the swim and me stumbling up the beach afterwards. I thought I had prepared. I'd swim in the nice warm pool. I could swim the distance pretty easily, felt confident. But on the day of execution, the 3 of us run into the water and my 2 daughters, of course, take off. And I'm left behind getting beaten up, churned about, getting hit on the head, lost my goggles, and feeling sorry for myself. And I've probably never been closer to quitting than I was in that moment. Even though my daughters, I was eating their bubbles. There was a wave runner that trailed along the outside group of the swimmers that had a trailer on it, a floaty, to pick up swimmers who wanted to quit. Probably no more than 100 meters into the swim, I was eyeballing that wave runner. Where's it at? And the problem was I would get my head in the water and the cold water of San Francisco Bay, I couldn't keep my head in the water. And then at the same time, I was just losing it. I'd been in combat, I'd been shot at, but here I was, I could not do this. But it's what kept me going, as you can see here, these bright orange buoys. I told myself, okay, I give talks about not quitting. I'm not gonna quit here. I can't quit, the wave runner's right there, I'm not gonna quit. So I told myself, make it to the first orange buoy. Just breaststroke, keep your head out of the water, watch everyone keep going, but just make it to that first orange buoy. And sure enough, I don't know how, combination of ugly doggy paddle and breaststroke, I made it to the first orange buoy. My daughters are probably already done by then, but I was at the first buoy, making my way out across the bay and coming back. But after that first buoy, I started to put my head a little bit more into the water. And I could get into that freestyle stroke, and then my head would pop back up. So I'd make it to the next buoy. Just get to the next buoy, let the wave runner go, but get to the next buoy. And I did that for the next however long it took me to get through the swim. But the point was, as I started to look and see where I needed to go and come back from, I was not going to make it. There was no way I was going to make that goal by looking at the entirety of where I needed to go. Instead, I broke it down into buoys. I overcame my own panic, my own fear, because that big orange buoy was beckoning to me. And I just locked on it. I didn't worry about the other 10 buoys, I just locked on that one. In your own life, as you encounter that cold water, despite your training, despite your courage going into the challenge, you may not be able to keep your face in that cold water. And your brain may freak out, and your heart may jump out of your chest. but find an orange buoy. What's going to be the orange buoy in your life as you encounter whatever obstacle it is you're encountering? Maybe you want to run 3 miles. Maybe you want to run a marathon, but you're struggling. Find the next light post, run to that light post. Find the next runner and run down that runner. What's going to be the orange buoy in your life that will pull you along? Find those buoys and you'll make it. Understanding and mercy. So this is a shot of me as a well into it Green Beret in the wild of Afghanistan, Grizzly Adams. This was living the dream. This is what we trained for. This is what Green Berets want to do. Want to be like this, wild, crazy, out on the wild frontier. But I never would have gotten to this point if I had not been the recipient of understanding and mercy along my path to this picture. Before you even become a Green Beret, you go through what's called selection and then qualification. During the selection course, they run you through intense activities, and one of them being land navigation, where you have to carry a lot of weight on your back. You have to navigate through the woods, and you have to find certain points. And while you're doing this, you're in a scenario as if you're infiltrating enemy territory. So you can't just walk around with a flashlight or wave down cars or walk on the road. You have to do it in a tactical, quiet manner, if you will. And they call it the STAR course. You do several STAR courses because you usually spend most of your time out navigating under the stars. Long distances, a lot of weight, difficult. One technique they teach us to help us not lose our minds during this is to put our map, our compass is always attached, but our map, protractor, and pencil, whatever gear we need to navigate, in a pouch, and then secure that pouch around our neck and tuck it down our shirt. Because as you're navigating, you just sometimes become a little loony, a little loopy, and lose your mind. And you never want to lose your map. So there I was on one of my STAR courses, and as you do a map check, you have to get down in the prone, put your poncho liner over you, bring out a red flashlight, check on the map, look at the terrain, get your bearings adjusted, and then pick up and go again. So I needed to do this at one point. I needed to check, do a map check, make sure the terrain matched where I thought I was, and then I proceeded to do my map check. Finished my map check, got up, put my gear back on, and proceeded along my azimuth, my distance, my direction, and continued to walk. Needed to do another map check. Got back down in the prone, went to look for my map, and it was not there. I had lost everything, basically lost my guts. My map, protractor, everything was gone. So your instructions as a candidate, if that ever happens to you, are, you're done. Thank you for playing. Find the nearest road and wait for a truck to pick you up. So I was well into selection by this point, and I was now done. So I found the nearest road, took my rucksack off, waited. And lo and behold, a truck came up, pulled up. Usually it's an instructor or an evaluator that gets out, but out jumped the commander of the entire selection course. Not just any evaluator, but the commander of the whole course. What's going on, candidate? He knew what's going on, but he wanted to play with me. So you've had a rough day, huh? What's going on? So I proceeded to tell him my sorry story, how I'd lost my map, and just told him. Didn't make any excuses, I just made a tragic mistake. I was done. He proceeded to look at my scores, how I'd been doing thus far to this point, and changed my life by telling me, you know what? Here's a new map. Here's where you are on the map. You're well behind schedule, but get going. Good luck. He put me back on the course with a new map and with a new chance. He exercised tremendous understanding and mercy, and he taught me a lesson I've never forgot, that sometimes people just make mistakes. People just make mistakes. People on your team, in your families, people you lead, they don't wake up and come into work thinking, how can I make a mistake today? How can I screw my boss? Probably don't start their days like that. But sometimes along the way, people on your team make mistakes. You make mistakes. It's important as a leader to recognize that mistakes happen and to exercise understanding and mercy in those situations. It's also important as a member of the team that when you do make a mistake, that you've demonstrated performance so that when you make a mistake, your leader can trust that it was a mistake, But hey, just made an honest mistake. This isn't the norm. So for me, I was able to receive that understanding and mercy because I had fortunately demonstrated that I could do okay. I'd done well up to that point. I just made a mistake. So I'm very grateful for that understanding and mercy, because had he not exercised that, my dream would have been over at that point. I would have been done from the selection course, and my goal of becoming a Green Beret would not have happened. Later, I had the opportunity to go to the White House West Wing. Here's a shot going in before, where I was able to talk to National Security Council staffers about my experiences in Colombia. None of these experiences would have happened had I not been the recipient of understanding and mercy. Next, as a leader, when in charge, be in charge. I learned this at the end of the qualification course for Special Forces. So before you earn your Green Beret, before you earn your tab, they take all of the student Green Berets and put us in student teams. So we're not legitimate A teams, but we're student A teams. So we still have a ton to learn, but we think we know a lot. So in this scenario, they put us in A teams, student A teams, and drop us in the middle of North Carolina, which is supposed to be like a guerrilla country, and we're going to infiltrate and link up with host nation guerrillas and do guerrilla warfare and foreign internal defense, all the stuff that Green Berets should do. But it begins by getting dropped off. So my student team, usually on a real A team, there's one captain. There's one captain that's in charge. On a student team, sometimes there are two, because there are just too many students. They need to be evaluated, need to have these experiences. So on my student team, there were two captains. So at the drop-off point, proceeded to dump all our bags. It's always chaos. Dust, chaos, people not knowing what's going on. This happened with my student team. So we're trying to figure out where we need to go, and up walked our evaluator. Came right up to myself and the other captain. And all he said was, "Who's in charge here? Who's in charge here?" Looked at us both. Who's in charge? An interesting moment in my life. Chaos going on behind me. I knew this was my evaluator. I had a perfect opportunity to say, I don't know, this is a mess. I don't want to be responsible for this mess. I don't want to be graded against this. Who's in charge here? Fortunately, in that moment, I said, I am. I'm in charge. And the evaluator said, okay, and walked away. We didn't know what had happened. Now I was in charge. I later learned that that was the first test. It was a deliberate test. They put us in that situation, wanted to walk up, wanted to gain that first check on who was going to step up in the middle of chaos. In the absence of command. They purposely didn't tell us, okay, Colby, you're going to be in command from insertion through planning, through the first infiltration. They didn't tell us that. They purposely kind of left it vague because they wanted to test who would step up. So as a leader, sometimes it's not going to be clear always who's in charge. So when appropriate, when necessary, step up. Fill that void. People around you will appreciate that when appropriate. Don't be afraid to step up and be in charge. When in charge, be in charge. So those are a few ideas about leadership. Now, as a leader, you need to build your team. You need to take care of your team that's around you. And again, it may be a sports team, maybe a family, maybe a project team, maybe a team. But as a member of a team, it's important to qualify yourself. As a Special Forces A-team leader, I certainly was probably the least experienced on the team. Those Green Berets that I was responsible for were senior non-commissioned officers in the Army. They'd been in the Army probably as long as I'd been alive, some of them. The best at what they do. The weapons sergeants knew everything about weapons. The medics, top of the line medics in the military. The communication sergeants, best at their craft. But I needed to learn what their skills were. I needed to qualify myself on their skills so that I could effectively lead them, so that I could effectively employ their talents. So as a leader, you're not going to be the best programmer, or you may not be the best software engineer, or you may not be the best shortstop. But take the time to understand what those skills are so that when the moment comes to employ your team, you know how to do that. Qualify yourself. You don't need to be the best or be the expert, but qualify yourself enough to appreciate those skills. Next, get to know your team. This is a shot of me with the black jacket in the middle as part of a makeshift jirga, they're called in Afghanistan, with the local mullahs from my region. I had to take the time to get to know my team. This was my Afghan team, these mullahs. Each one of them had different buttons, as I mentioned earlier. It was not black or white, it was shades of gray. Each one of them saw the world a little bit differently from the other. I needed to take the time to get to know them, to build those relationships of trust, so that in the moment of need, either for me or for them, we could trust each other. If I needed to do something for our team, I knew which buttons to push, or I knew how to effectively engage with that mullah, or how to help my soldier. Take the time to get to know those on your team. Take the time to walk up to so-and-so and say, what sort of thing do you do here? Give me a minute and teach me what you do here. I want to learn. As a new lieutenant coming into a platoon, similar to an A-team, you know the least on that team and that platoon. I always enjoyed, as a new lieutenant, going up to my privates, who clearly I outranked, but allowing them to teach me, hey, how does this machine gun work? How do you employ this machine gun? Teach me everything you know about this machine gun. And they loved that. And in exchange, we built a relationship. I just had the opportunity to start a new role at Google, a brand new role a couple months ago. And I came into it wanting to see how this would work coming towards me. New manager, new leadership team. And it was interesting. I wanted to see if my new manager would take the time to get to know me, or take the time to get to know what I could do, my skills, my abilities. Unfortunately, it's more of the latter. I was hoping he would be more of the, Colby, I want to get to know you. I want to build a relationship with you so that later I can understand your skills. We'll have that trust. So we're working on the second part. So it can be good or bad, no matter where you're at. But as a leader on your team, take the time to build that trust first, so that when you walk away, when your teammates walk away from you, they'll know that you care about them. And then you know that they understand what it is you do. If people trust you and know that you have their best interests, then they're more inclined to follow you. So take the time to get to know your team. Now, once you have your team, recognize that there are different capabilities on your team. A Special Forces A team has medics, weapons sergeants, communications guys, intel, lots of different capabilities. But Green Berets, they do not like to be labeled. They don't want to be known as the weapons guy or the commo guy. They want to be known as a Green Beret first. So this is a shot of me in the middle of my vehicle that's sinking in a river in Afghanistan. In this instance, there was no time or place for me to say, I'm the captain, you're the weapons guy, you're the commo guy, do your stuff. I'm not gonna get this out of the water. I'm the captain. You guys figure it out and get us out of here. There was no time or no place for us to fall back into our labels or into our skill sets. We had to become a team in order to get out of this messy situation. So when you're leading your team, see through the labels. For example, if you're leading a project team, don't see folks first for their skill. Don't say, hey, you're the software engineer, you're the programmer, you're a project manager. Look at your team as people first and skills second. Look at them as Green Berets first and then a weapons guy. Next, on a team, there's responsibility. A team owns responsibility. Each person on that team has a sliver of that responsibility. This is a picture of me after an operation where, coming into our target area, the Chinook helicopter that I was on, Chinooks have the two propellers, we took immediate enemy fire, direct enemy fire, as we were coming into the final approach on our target, that caused our whole operation to now change. We had a great plan going in, we'd rehearsed it, we'd practiced, we'd planned, but the enemy always gets a vote in any operation. You've probably seen that in your lives, right? The enemy always gets a vote. The best laid plan always changes as soon as that first foot goes out the door. Well, that happened here. My helicopters of my assault force were now split up. My helicopter going down on the near side of the target, the other half of my assault force on the far side. We meant to come in together and then assault through the target together. Now we were divided with the enemy between us. Fortunately, my team was able to get off of our helicopter while it proceeded to go down on the far side of the ridge. We owned the responsibility. We had to take care of that target, even though our plan had completely changed. We now were maneuvering, firing upon the enemy that was between us. And me, as the commander, the assault force leader, thought that we were shooting at each other. I thought we were hearing the gunfire from my team on the far side, and I was afraid that my far side element, thinking there was enemy between us, was just hearing us returning fire, and that we were ultimately shooting at each other. That could have been the case if each one of my members, each one of my teammates, had not owned their own responsibility. Each member had to know where they were, where the other was on the battlefield, where the enemy was. They could not just walk away from that responsibility and lose their mind and start shooting. They had to understand where they were and had to own that responsibility. Fortunately, we all came out okay. We all were able to take care of the target, and we didn't shoot each other. But I can attribute that because each one of my teammates knew where they were. They knew what their role was, and they were able to stick to that, even though everything had changed and we were in total chaos. As you own responsibility in chaos, you'll experience success in that unconventional environment. So own responsibility, teach responsibility to your teammates. Make sure that they understand what their role is in the broader mission of the team. So back to my team. Now that we've talked about teams, you can see my band of brothers here. Guys who I would go to battle with any day, who I knew if I had a hard moment now, I could call them and they would have my back no matter what. And I'm confident that's because we trained together, we built relationships of trust, we were in combat together, we had each other's back, and then we had fun together. So back to what I said in the beginning. We had body armor, rifles, helmets. We were an A-team. But each of you have that same opportunity, could have that same experience. You don't have to have body armor. You don't have to have a rifle. You don't have to have a helmet. But you can each practice and employ these same principles in your experiences with your teams, no matter where they may be, and bring together your own A-team. If you want to have a rifle, then go to the range. You could practice it there. Finally, as a team, think about the model of the Green Berets. We're a little bit different from Navy SEALs. That's a joke for another day. Green Berets, our motto is quiet professionals. We're not the kind that walk into a room and thump our chest and say, look at us, give us all the attention. Let all the oxygen come to us. The world now revolves around us. That's the Navy SEALs. The Green Berets, we are quiet professionals. You on your team, I encourage you to do the same. Don't be that team that walks into a room or that's coming down a hallway who others see and go, oh no, we're going this way, and walk away because they know that you're obnoxious or you're not the kind of teammates that they want to work with. Help your team become a team of quiet professionals. Let your actions speak louder than your words. We didn't just say we were going there to help people. We helped them. We let our actions speak louder than what our words were. This is the emblem of the regimental crest for Special Forces, crossed arrows to signify that when we come into a target or do a mission, we strike before you even hear us. We go in, we come out, and we accomplish the mission. Think of that with your team. Be that team of quiet professionals that can quietly do its job. Maybe if you need to be a little loud, be loud, but do your job and depart and take the credit later or let the credit go somewhere else. Accomplish your mission and be those quiet professionals. Help your teammates to put in that final piece. Sometimes it takes a group. There's one final piece. Organize your team and elevate that one person who can put that final piece into the puzzle. Come together as a team. Imagine yourself and your team circling around, huddling, everyone knowing what the common goal is, what the common responsibility is, and own it. And if you see a shark coming towards you, if your project is now in chaos, you've got a timeline that's slipped or a budget that's busted and a shark's coming, Rally up all your little goldfish and take on that shark together. If you take it on as one goldfish, that shark's going to gobble you up, and your project's going to go sideways, or your team's going to fall apart, or your family's going to experience difficulty. But if you can rally together your minnows, your goldfish, together you can take on that shark, turn that shark around. And then finally, be that lighthouse. Be the lighthouse in the storm. Stand firm. Tell your team where danger is. Let them see where danger is because you've identified it and you're standing firm to turn them away. Give them direction to safe harbor. And then stand firm yourself. As you stand firm in the storm, people will follow you and they'll stay safe. So thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thank you.